New York State Attorney General Barbara Underwood announced today that Donald Trump has agreed to dissolve the Trump Foundation, a so-called charity, and give away its funds to reputable charities under a court's supervision. The agreement comes in response to an ongoing lawsuit by the state of New York against Donald Trump and his children for what the New York State Attorney General described today as, quote, a shocking pattern of illegality involving the Trump Foundation, including unlawful coordination with the Trump presidential campaign, repeated and willful self-dealing, and much more. This amounted to the Trump Foundation functioning as little more than a checkbook to serve Mr. Trump's business and political interests. Today's agreement to dissolve the foundation will not end the Attorney General's lawsuit against the Trump Foundation, which seeks to ban Donald Trump and his children, Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka Trump, and Eric Trump, from serving on the boards of any New York charities. The Washington Post's David Fahrenthold reports that under the deal announced today, the Trump Foundation must sell its only 3 remaining physical assets, which are an autographed Tim Tebow football helmet, a 4-foot-tall portrait of Donald Trump, and a 6-foot-tall portrait of Donald Trump. Donald Trump spent a combined $42,000 of charity money on those items, but now the foundation values them at just $975. Joining our discussion now, Washington Post reporter David Fahrenthold, who won a Pulitzer Prize for his reporting on the Trump Foundation. Also joining us, Tim O'Brien, the executive editor of Bloomberg Opinion. Both are MSNBC contributors. And David, let me just start with how the $42,000 becomes $975. How did the football helmet and the 2 Trump portraits lose $41,000 in value?
Well, I don't exactly know. The Trump Foundation has put that current value on them. So these were all things that Trump bought at charity auctions. So these were times when he was in front of a big crowd, sort of playing the role of rich guy in the room. He overpays for these items. He pays $12,000 for this signed Tim Tebow helmet. He pays $30,000 combined for these 2 portraits of himself, which is great. It's great to buy things at charity auctions. But then he uses his charity's money to pay for those things. So he's buying assets for himself using the money from a theoretically independent charity. That's where you get into trouble. And he overpaid for them, obviously. What I'll be interested to know is, can they find them to actually sell them? I've been trying to track down these items, and I can only tell you where one of them was. 2 of them, the helmet and the 6-foot-tall portrait, I have no idea where they are.
And Tim O'Brien, as David's reporting showed us in his original reporting about the foundation, the money going into that foundation was not Donald Trump's money. He was using other people's money within that charitable foundation. So when people saw Donald Trump doing the grand gesture of buying the helmet, he was buying it with other people's money.
That's right. It's also a good moment, Lawrence, just to flag David's reporting once again, because a lot of the substance of the Attorney General's case here came out of David's wonderful reporting around this, and early reporting by Bill Bastone at The Smoking Gun, which begs the question of why, this has been going on for years, why it took Donald Trump becoming president to have this kind of scrutiny on the Trump Foundation. He put in less money than outside donors put into his own foundation. The Trump family has noted that they had expenditures that were in excess of the amount of money that they received. But the problem with those expenditures is they went to awfully strange things, and frankly reprehensible if you look at the way it's laid out in the lawsuit that the Attorney General has filed against the family. His single biggest expenditure was to rehabilitate a fountain outside the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan, about over $260,000. Of course, Trump owned that hotel. Earlier today, actually, when that got I tweeted that out, David Fahrenthold responded on Twitter by noting, and the single smallest expenditure that the foundation made was a $7 Boy Scouts of America contribution that apparently went to pay the Boy Scout fee for one of Trump's sons. You know, this was never, I think, really a charity. You know, mentioned earlier in the program that Trump betrayed the mission of the charity, but I actually don't think he set this up with charitable intentions. I think he saw it as something that could be a vehicle for financial machinations, and the lawsuit makes that pretty clear that it was.
David, some extraordinary reporting you have today about this. You say state investigators asked Weisselberg, who's the chief financial officer of all things Trump and apparently was a member of the board of the foundation, what the foundation's policies were to determine whether its payments were proper. There's no policy, just so you understand, Weisselberg said. That is as smoking gun as you could ask for it in the investigation of a charity like this.
That's right. Weisselberg was really interesting. The deposition they got from him showed you kind of how lax, beyond even your expectations for a Trump-run enterprise, how lax the controls were at that foundation. For one thing, Weisselberg, who was the treasurer of the Trump Foundation, had been for years, had no idea he was even on the board of the foundation. And it turned out that the board of the foundation, which included Ivanka Trump, Eric Trump, and Donald Trump Jr., all supposed to be sort of looking out for the financial interests of the foundation, overseeing its money, making sure it wasn't mismanaged. That board hadn't actually met since 1999.
And Tim O'Brien, I know that you have registered absolutely zero surprise with any of this reporting. It's not that you had the specific knowledge that David obtained, but when David was out there and discovering that Donald Trump has not put any of his money into the foundation and Donald Trump has not made payments on all sorts of charitable promises that he made, that's the Donald Trump you discovered when you were writing your book about Donald Trump years ago.
This is a familiar person, obviously. I think the foundation is one facet of the universe of Trump operations that now have drawn the attention of law enforcement officials. You know, the Trump organization, the Trump family, the Trump inauguration, the Trump transition, the Trump White House, the Trump Foundation are all being investigated for various shades of wrongdoing. You know, even though this stuff has been known for a long time, I think the value in reporting like David's in all of this is that it reminds us of really how remarkably craven the president has been in these various walks of life that he's inhabited. You know, let's not forget that one of the events that the Attorney General pointed to was an alleged fundraiser, a purported fundraiser that Trump held in Iowa in 2016, in which he had military veterans on the stage with him, that he was raising funds ostensibly to help out vets. And he staged that event as an alternative to appearing at a debate in 2016, one of the presidential debates. And we've yet to get a full accounting for how the money was spent that Trump raised during that event and that ostensibly went into the Trump Foundation.
And what did Donald Trump tweet when the New York State Attorney General first started moving on this case? He tweeted, "I won't settle this case." And of course, today, he made an attempt at settling it by at least beginning with dissolving the Trump Foundation. David Fahrenthold, extraordinary reporting on this. Thank you very much for joining us. Tim O'Brien, thank you for joining us. And when we come back, we have never seen anything like the presidency of Donald Trump. We all know that. But presidential historian John Meacham will tell us what is so extraordinary about this.